Okay, so get ready to deep dive with us into something a little, well, shall we say, mystical.
Mystical.
Hmm.
Sounds intriguing already.
Yeah, manifestation.
Yeah.
But before anyone starts picturing, chanting under a full moon,
Uh-huh. Right.
let's be super clear. This deep dive is about exploring a very specific technique,
Okay.
visualization, and how some people use it to achieve goals or make changes in their life,
I see.
or
Yes.
even some would say bring things into being, manifest them.
Right, right. The whole thoughts become reality kind of thing.
Exactly. So we've got this excerpt, right? It really zeroes in on these really detailed visualization techniques.
Interesting.
And the whole core idea of it is, well, pretty fascinating. But instead of, going back and forth about whether you can actually like will something into existence,
Right, right.
we want to come at this from like a practical angle.
Okay, I like that.
So how does this whole detailed sensory visualization thing actually work? Like, how does it play out in different fields like sports, therapy, even like business? How are people actually using it?
Mhm.
And what's the science behind it? Could there be any real world benefits, even if you're not, the kind of person who's constantly burning sage and setting intentions?
Yeah, I think that's the key question a lot of people have, right? Like, is there something to this beyond just, the woo-woo stuff?
Totally.
What's fascinating to me is that the concept of manifestation, it's not exactly new. Like, it goes way back.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It draws from all these different spiritual and philosophical traditions. But, today,
Hmm.
it seems like it often boils down to this belief that, our thoughts can actually influence our reality.
Okay, but that sounds pretty out there to me.
Yeah, I get that. It can definitely sound that way.
So is it really more than just wishful thinking?
Well, not quite. Think of it this way. When we imagine something, right? And I mean really vividly imagine it.
Hmm.
We're basically creating this kind of mental blueprint in our brains.
A blueprint.
Yeah. And what's amazing is that neuroscientists, they've actually found that when we visualize an action,
Hmm.
it activates a lot of the same brain regions as actually physically performing that action.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's pretty
So
wild.
it's like our brain's kind of tricking itself into thinking it's already doing the thing.
In a way, yeah. But the thing is, it's not just a trick. It can have real effects.
Okay, so how does that actually translate into, real world change? If it's all happening up here, how does that change what we actually do?
Right, that's the big question. And this is where the whole concept of neuroplasticity comes in.
Neuroplasticity, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, so it's basically the idea that our brains, they're not fixed. They're actually incredibly adaptable.
So, like, they can change.
Exactly. They can change and rewire themselves based on our experiences and, get this, our thoughts.
Wow.
So when we do repeated visualization, we're basically strengthening the connections in our brains.
That are associated with those actions or those outcomes that we're imagining.
Oh, I see.
So it's like we're doing this mental rehearsal that's actually priming our minds and bodies, to make us more likely to actually take the steps we need to achieve those goals.
That's so interesting. So like athletes, right?
Exactly.
They visualize winning the game or, making that perfect shot.
Yeah.
But does it really go beyond just like boosting their confidence?
Oh, absolutely. There are tons of examples. Michael Phelps.
The swimmer.
Yeah, Michael Phelps. He famously used like super detailed visualization as part of his training. Like he wouldn't just picture himself winning, he'd imagine the feel of the water, the sound of the crowd, even like the taste of the chlorine.
Wow, that's crazy specific.
Yeah, and that's actually where our source gets really interesting, right?
Yeah.
It talks about engaging all of your senses.
Mhm.
Smell the air, feel the sheets, taste the coffee. Like it really gets into it.
Yeah, it does. But is it really necessary to get that specific?
Well, I think the source is definitely onto something here. See, when you engage multiple senses,
Oh,
you create a much richer, more immersive mental experience.
I see. Thanks.
It's not just seeing your goal, it's feeling it, smelling it, almost tasting it, and all that detail.
Yeah.
It strengthens those neural pathways associated with the outcome that you want. It basically makes it feel more real to your brain. And, potentially that can influence your actions.
That makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
actually, I tried something similar before I had to give a big presentation recently. Like
Yeah.
I visualized the whole room, the audience, even how the clicker would feel in my hand.
Wow.
And you know what? It really did help me calm my nerves.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, visualization can be a really powerful tool for managing
Oh,
anxiety.
yeah.
Yeah, because by mentally rehearsing a situation, we can reduce that feeling of uncertainty,
Right.
and it gives us a greater sense of control, which usually leads to more confidence and often better performance too.
Okay, that makes sense. But, and there's always a but,
Haha, of course.
couldn't this lead to people just, getting stuck in fantasy land?
Oh, yeah,
Like
definitely.
they're so busy visualizing their perfect life, they never actually do anything to make it happen.
That's a really crucial point. I mean, visualization is not a magic wand. It's not going to, just magically make things happen.
Right.
It's a tool, and it's meant to be used together with taking real-world action. It's about, aligning your inner world, what you're thinking and feeling, with the goals that you have, and then you use that mental clarity, to actually fuel your efforts.
Got it. So action is still key.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what about the ethical side of things? Is there any risk of, manifesting something at someone else's expense?
Yeah, that's where things get a little more complicated. I mean, the ethical implications of this really depend on how it's applied.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like visualization itself, it's not inherently unethical, but it's really important to think about the potential consequences of our desires,
Hmm.
right? And to make sure we're acting with integrity. Like, for example, visualizing success in your career, that's one thing.
Right.
But visualizing someone else losing their job so that you can get that
Oh,
opportunity,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
that's a totally different story.
That's not cool.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're not saying like you could just wish your way to $1 million or your dream job.
Right.
What we are saying is that the power of our minds
Yes.
to shape our experiences, our actions, and even to some extent our reality, it's way greater than we often realize.
It really is. And it's something that, we're still exploring and learning about. There's so much we don't understand about this whole mind-body connection.
For sure.
But the potential here, the potential for visualization to help us achieve our goals, manage our emotions, and maybe even unlock possibilities that we hadn't even considered.
Right.
There. That's definitely something we're thinking about.
Definitely. So if you had to suggest just one small step, one little thing that our listeners could try to kind of experiment with this,
Oh, that's a great question.
what would it be?
Okay. I would say just take a minute and think about one small detail, just one tiny thing from your ideal future. Something that you can vividly imagine right now. It
Okay.
could be a feeling of accomplishment, after finishing a project, or the warmth of a hug from someone you love,
Mm-hmm.
or even like the smell of your morning coffee, in your dream home. Whatever it is, just hold on to that feeling for a moment. Let it really sink in.
Okay.
And you might be surprised by how that simple act of visualization can actually shift your perspective
Hmm.
and maybe even influence your actions in some way.
I love that. And even if we don't like perfectly manifest everything,
Right.
just the practice of doing it, intentionally visualizing,
Yes.
it can make our inner world and maybe even our actions a little more aligned with, what we really want.
Absolutely. It's like planting a seed,
Ooh, I like that.
and you nurture it with your thoughts and your actions, and then you get to see what grows.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time.
See you then.